Depression's an illness. It's a set of illnesses, disorders, and more specifically, they're brain disorders. It isn't just the sadness that comes from a disappointment. If my football team loses, I'm disappointed, I'm disheartened, but it doesn't mean I have clinical depression. At any given moment in America, perhaps 5 to 8 million people are sitting in an episode of depression and struggling with all of that consequence that it implies. There are actually probably 18 to 19 million people who have the disorder, but a percentage are doing reasonably well at that time, whether it's because they're not in an episode or are getting effective treatment. The data that are out there from multiple sources show that maybe 50% who have depression don't ever get a diagnosis. And when you look at that, this is a major part of the problem in dealing with depression and bipolar illnesses, because underdiagnosis and undertreatment are pretty profound barriers. We can't do something about these disorders unless we know they're there. The symptoms usually begin mildly. They don't start just like that. Ooh, suddenly I'm depressed. There are mild sleep disturbances. There may be changes in pleasure. There may be loss of interest that's being experienced. I don't any longer want to play tennis. Those mild symptoms, unfortunately, because of what's going on in our genes and in our brains, for some, don't just turn off and go away. And then you end up having a pattern where they get worse, where they tend to get more severe. That, in most cases, sets off that longitudinal course of depression, and it's important for us to see this as a longer-term problem. Depression definitely comes and goes throughout life. It is an episodic, recurrent disorder, and untreated, each episode tends to get a little worse, tends to last a little longer, and the concern for clinicians like me is that it becomes harder to treat. Untreated depression really creates a sense of tragedy, hopelessness, despair sometimes among not only the individuals but among family members. When those people learn more, suddenly some of those horrible, tragic, despairing, and hopeless feelings are replaced by a sense of hope. And that's produced a really profound change even in some of the families as they seek to get involved in our efforts. There are good treatments for depression. We at the Michigan Depression Center and many others around the world are trying to improve them, but we have good treatments. There are more than 40 types of medications that now are available to help treat depression. There are also some dedicated psychotherapies that have been developed that try to teach people how to cope with stresses, recognize events, really modify thinking patterns that they know set them off. These are ways to try to make not only people feel better, but to stay better over time. When you have an illness that starts in younger ages, gets worse over time, and basically is most treatable in its earliest, mildest stages, it becomes vital to find it early, intervene early, and to prevent progression. Those are really the hallmarks of the University of Michigan Depression Center.